So, you want to save the world with clean energy? Make money doing it? Confused about the economic and technical realities of residential and commercial solar, batteries, heat pumps, EVs? Want the real-world scoop on new energy technologies, not manufacturer hype? Then tune in to the Weekly Energy Show, hosted by Barry Cinnamon. Insights from Barry's 40-plus years in the solar and energy industry will help you understand the future ways we'll generate and consume energy. And now, here's Barry.
Welcome to this week's Energy Show. Now, the solar industry has historically, over the past 10 years or so, been pretty big on both coasts. California, East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, up into the Northeast. But what's really great now is solar's taking off almost everywhere around the country, including blue states like Indiana. This week, our guest is T J Kanczuzewski, CEO of Inovateus Solar. They're based in South Bend, Indiana. And like many solar CEOs, TJ started Inovateus out of his passion for clean energy. And what's really terrific is he's built a big company into one of the dominant commercial solar installers in the U.S., and certainly dominant in the Midwest, where he's focusing most of his business. So welcome to the show, TJ.
Thanks, Barry. I'm a big fan of the show, so thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. It's great. Well, you recently wrote a book called Building a Brilliant Tomorrow, and, I read it. I'm very impressed in seeing this kind of solar success. But I think our listeners would really like to hear is, you talk a lot about building the company in the book. Tell us a bit about Inovateus Solar. What markets are you in, and who are your customers, and how did you build the company?
Sure. Well, Barry, you mentioned we're based in South Bend, Indiana, so we have a strong Midwestern U.S. focus. However, we do work all across the country, and we have worked overseas, doing some work in the Caribbean. And in our earlier days, we distributed a lot of product internationally, so even to places like China, Europe, even Greenland, some islands like Fiji. And we are a solar developer and contractor, and we've built utility and commercial solar projects. And we focus primarily on bigger opportunities. However, a lot of small commercial plus storage solar projects have popped up. So we've kind of kept our eye on those. By the end of this year, we will have built around 350 megawatts. And we are in the top 10 in the U.S. for solar developers. We've got a lot of commercial customers, like you mentioned on the commercial side, with companies like IKEA, Walmart, and Ford. And we're currently finishing the largest solar carport in the country for Michigan State, which is very exciting. So, we have our fingers in a number of places around the country, but definitely have that Midwest focus.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's important to find markets that aren't too competitive. It's important to find markets that have a lot of future growth potential. And, obviously talking about small commercial, which is an underserved market, talking about storage, there's a lot we can do there. You're in a lot of different segments. How do you reach these potential customers?
Well, we wait for the wind to blow. We kind of put our finger up and make a determination. Barry, I'm sure you're familiar with the term the solar coaster. So there's been a lot of changes in solar energy. So we found early on at Inovateus that we have to do a very good job of being on the cutting edge of the industry and sort of knowing the pulse and what's happening. So we have a research and development focus at our company. Our Nathan Vogel, for instance, is our Vice President of Research and Development, and he spends his days looking at the markets, trying to determine where Inovateus is best suited to, go after potential projects and reach customers who want to do solar. We've also been great advocates of solar throughout the Midwest, and so we have to do a lot of education and meeting with utilities and politicians, and social media has been a big outlet for us as well. Twitter, Facebook, and however we can reach customers while at the same time understanding what's happening in the marketplace.
So just taking a few steps back, what prompted you to start Inovateus Solar, and then what prompted you to kind of focus on this commercial market?
My dad started Inovateus development in 2005. And at that same time, I worked at a company in Chicago called General Growth Properties, which was a real estate investment trust that had very large malls all across the country. And I think today still they're the second largest REIT in the country. I was looking at solar energy opportunities for these very big roofs that we had at General Growth, while my dad was doing the research on solar and other renewables at Inovateus. So he kept sending me bits and pieces of information on what he was working on, and solar was something I always believed in and had a lot of interest in. And so one thing led to another, and I pitched my dad on an idea to start Inovateus Solar. And it took a little while of him telling me, no, keep doing what you're doing. And finally he caved in, and we got Inovateus Solar started in 2008.
Well, it definitely sounds like it was the right decision, even though it sometimes takes a little bit of time. You mentioned public policies. What is Inovateus Solar doing to encourage favorable public policies?
Well, we're trying to do as much as we can to educate our politicians. And being in a state like Indiana, we're, I would say, a little bit behind the times in terms of what's been happening nationally with solar energy. So, back in 2008, we spent a lot of time down at the state capitol working with state legislators and trying to talk to them about solar energy. And at the time, we were mostly sharing case studies of what was happening in California and maybe states like New Jersey. But, we've maintained those relationships over the years. And I keep in good contact with U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly, who was a congressperson when I first started at Inovateus. So we have to continue to, educate. And anytime I get an opportunity to meet with politicians like our mayor in South Bend, Pete Buttigieg, who's kind of a national figure at the moment, a leading member of the Democratic Party. We talk to them about solar. We tell them what's going on. We tell them about the projects in Indiana and Michigan and the jobs that are being created. Even last year, I had the opportunity to go to the White House and sit on a hearing based on clean energy, and I got to speak on behalf of what was happening on some of our projects. So, any opportunity we get, we have to take advantage of that.
No, it's interesting. In your book, you talk about an anecdote of installing a system on the island of Anguilla in the Caribbean. And you put that system in, and it was doing great. And then the Public Utility Commission and the utility in Anguilla basically said, well, we're not going to allow you to connect half of the system. How can you kind of make sure that the public utilities commissions, not only islands, but in states in which we're doing business, really have policies that make sense for ratepayers as a whole, as opposed to just the incumbent utilities?
Well, I think we have to spend as much time with them as they will allow us. In Inovateus, we're consistently making trips around the Midwest and calling upon the utilities and sitting down with them, having meetings. And sometimes we don't have a specific project that we're talking to them about, but we are just kind of bringing them up to speed in terms of what's happening in other parts of the country where the policies might be a little more favorable, or like, for instance, in California, like a utility like PSE&G, where I know there's been some challenges, but I would say more of a forward-thinking utility where we can show utilities in the Midwest that it's a good way to look at the future. So we have to spend a lot of time, and we kind of can, consider ourselves solar evangelists. So we have to kind of share that solar evangelist message with the utilities.
Yeah, no, it's just something that you got to keep doing. And you mentioned PG&E, and they are really a leader when it comes to solar and clean energy, but they still keep me up at night with policies that are frustrating to companies like ours who are installing solar or solar and storage, because their policies are mostly oriented towards protecting their bottom line rather than lowering costs for ratepayers. But, that's why they call it a solar coaster. And so speaking of the solar coaster, what do you think of the upcoming tariff on solar cells, and how is that going to affect your business at Inovateus?
Well, Well, it's already affecting our business because we're trying to find solar panels for our ongoing projects. We had panels lined up for these projects before, but things have changed, and a number of the manufacturers are trying to sell for product for as much as they can, and in many cases too, the product's getting sucked up into other markets where they're able to get more for their product. Like China, for instance, China's consuming a lot of the solar products in the marketplace right now. So we've been doing our homework and trying to reach out to as many manufacturers as we can. We had to kind of understand the rules and guidelines, and really have a good understanding of the whole tariff process with the commissioners. And I learned more about NAFTA than I ever thought I would. So we're just trying to align ourselves with folks who can get us product at a decent price. But it's definitely affecting Inovateus, in the same way it's affecting many companies around the country.
So it sounds like you're experiencing the same thing that I'm seeing happening out here a lot, and even with my small installation company, is it's just you can get modules, but you're paying more for the modules than you expected. You look at the impact of the tariff on different market segments, residential, commercial, utility scale, and the prevailing wisdom is that the utility scale market's going to get hit the worst. And so that's a big market for Inovateus. So how could companies like yours manage that plunge that happens in the solar coaster? What's some advice you have for other companies?
Well, I think it's good to be diversified and always being prepared for, the valley of the solar coaster. It's still about education and advocacy, and working with the utility executives, politicians, and trying to find those markets that might not be as susceptible to changes. For instance, a place like Michigan State, they have their own power plant. They are, continuing to transition to clean energy. They want to be a leader and set an example for other universities, while their students also want them to be a leader. And since they, generate and consume their own electricity, they understand solar, and universities are usually a little bit more progressive too. So even though there might be changes happening in the marketplace, or the current administration might have some, creating some noise around clean energy, we have to sort of find the niche where solar will, continue to happen.
Right. That makes sense. You're finding some good, stable customers there. So you mentioned small commercial and battery storage. TJ, tell me a little bit more about customer interest that you're seeing in those technologies.
Yeah. Neat thing about batteries is that customers can sort of relate to the way they operate with generators they might already have. Hospitals, large manufacturing facilities, which we have a lot of those in Indiana and Michigan. So energy storage is something that we see them being even more interested than solar. And when you combine the two, you can get a pretty good payback. We're working with a brewery in Michigan, for instance, and the solar alone had around a 6.5-year payback, but when we added energy storage into the mix, it got down to about a 5-year payback, and that's with the added cost of the battery.
Yeah, well, and if you get paid in beer, you can get the payback down to 3 years.
Yeah, we tried that. We had to accept their money, and then we just turned it back into beer. But, with the batteries, you get to offset those peak demand charges. And so a lot of manufacturers in the Midwest specifically, that becomes a big part of their power bills. So we really see energy storage taking things to the next level here, and it brings about so many more opportunities for solar.
Yeah, no, we're very excited about the potential for energy storage here, and just in California, and there's incentives and rebates for that. It's kind of tricky navigating around the new technologies, and so speaking of new technologies, I noticed in your book that you did a lot of work with Unisolar peel and stick panels, which I've got some experience going back to 2001 on. So tell me about that experience and what opportunities that brought up for you.
Yeah. When we first started as Inovateus Development back in 2005, George Howard, the professor at Notre Dame, who was one of our co-founders, he had a relationship with Stan Ovshinsky, who was the founder of Energy Conversion Devices, a company started back in the 60s that had a number of different companies under its umbrella. And one of those companies became Unisolar, which is the same technology that actually went into some of the original calculators, solar cells in the calculators. So the Unisolar product was really neat and interesting to us because with the peel and stick application, you could take it to many different places in applications. They had some challenges when the cost of solar plummeted in 2011 to 13. So unfortunately, they're no longer around. But it's a really neat technology that still has its niche.
Yeah, no, that product is very, very cool. We did a lot of installations on schools in the Bay Area, and those systems are still working. So it's kind of cool how they just would glue down onto a standing seam metal roof. But then you do have the issue of some of these cutting edge technologies kind of coming and going. So regarding those technologies, so with energy storage, what products are you looking at? Are you looking at lithium-ion batteries, lead-acid batteries, flow batteries? I mean, what does your R&D department think is going to be the next great thing there?
Well, we're looking at all the above, but definitely lithium-ion batteries we think will be the mainstay for quite some time. If you think about it, with cell phones now, I think there's 2 billion people out of 7 billion people in the world that essentially carry around a lithium-ion battery all day long. And when a company like Tesla is trying to deliver, 450,000 Model 3s, that's just going to help drive down the cost of lithium-ion batteries and storage. So, some of these other technologies will start to pick up, but, at least not too distant future, lithium-ion is what we're betting on. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's kind of like solar cells. When the world market picked up, the prices came down a lot, and we're going to see the same thing with batteries. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit. Your book, Building a Brilliant Tomorrow, was great. And, a lot of the book doesn't just talk about the details of starting and running Inovateus Solar, but some of your core values. Tell me a little bit about the PEACE acronym that you have that describes your values.
Sure. Around 5 years ago, we were trying to describe what it meant to have the Inovateus Solar passion for what we do. And as we were trying to define that, it culminated into 5 different words or 5 different meanings. We use the acronym PEACE, but P stands for passion, engagement, which I would say in 2010, a number of our customers told us that we encompass the Hoosier values. We were very, friendly and Midwestern. And so we sort of tie that into being engaging. Ambition is we're very ambitious. We want to be a leader of solar energy in the Midwest. We want to be a top 5 solar developer by 2022. C is for creativity. We like to use our, creative talents that we have. I'm a musician as well, so I've definitely steered our company into any opportunities where we can tie music and solar together, like the Solar Battle of the Bands.
Well, speaking of the Solar Battle of the Bands, you mentioned that in the book, and Intersolar, and I've been to Intersolar, many, many times, been to the shows. So do you play the keyboard in the band?
Yeah, I play the keyboard and sing.
All right, and my only other comment is that you're a Grateful Dead fan. I hope you're not planning on being a keyboard player in any of the Grateful Dead spin-off bands, because that's got a fairly limited lifespan there. Insurance is going to be expensive.
The Grateful Dead fans know that they had about 6 keyboard players, and the one who's still alive is Bruce Hornsby.
Yes, yeah. I hope he keeps his day job because he's a great keyboard player. But boy,
he said that he survived because he was a part-time member.
Yeah, that makes that makes a lot of sense. All right, well, I'm sorry we interrupted talking about the core values. There's a couple more on there that you want to talk about.
Yeah, the last one was E, and that's for esprit de corps, which essentially means spirit of the team. And we think it's really important for anybody at Inovateus to believe in the spirit of our team and know that we might have different ideas or disagreements at times, but as long as we believe in the direction that the company is headed in, we're going to continue to do the right things. So we do a lot to build our teamwork here at Inovateus, including every Friday at 9 a.m. we have think tank conversations where we bring in food, coffee, breakfast food, and facilitators where our guests can range from the Notre Dame basketball coach to U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly. We have a lot of fun and continue to build strong teamwork.
Yeah. Fun is important. I mean, money motivates people, but just having a great place to work is also really, really important. How can people get in touch with Inovateus Solar?
You can get in touch with us on our website, which is www.inovateus.com. You can also call us if you have any interest. Our number is 574-485-1400. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've got social media covered. So feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking to connect with any folks that are interested in solar.
Well, that's all the time we have on this week's Energy Show. Thanks, TJ, for joining us, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. And if you missed any of today's show, you can always go to our website at cinnamonsolar.com and listen to the podcasts.
So, you want to save the world with clean energy? Make money doing it? Confused about the economic and technical realities of residential and commercial solar, batteries, heat pumps, EVs? Want the real-world scoop on new energy technologies, not manufacturer hype? Then tune in to the weekly Energy Show, hosted by Barry Cinnamon. Insights from Barry's 40-plus years in the solar and energy industry will help you understand the future ways we'll generate and consume energy. And now, here's Barry.